Oh, okay, here we are. We're live. Hi, I'm Amber Geislinger, and I am live with Kurt Kessler, and he is a demonologist, author, and paranormal researcher. And I'm immediately just going to jump into this interview. And Kurt, so tell our audience, tell everyone a bit about yourself, your background, and how you came to do what you do.
I am a paranormal investigator. I started when I was 17. I have well over 25 years into it, close to 30 years now. I started back in the days of VHS cameras and carrying around an actual tape cassette recorder. A lot of the industry itself has changed over the years, mainly roughly since 2001, 2002. That's when the TV programs really started hitting up everything and kind of twisted it into what we have now for paranormal investigation.
Yes.
What led me into demonology was I was involved in a case that, for the better degree, it was nice and dark, and it made me even question my own faith. I always was somewhat of a devout atheist, but certain things just kind of opened my mind up a little bit, but not really to the point to where I'm going to go to a church every Sunday and pray to whatever. But basically, yeah. So
What would so basically you had eyewitness accounts.
hang on, you cut out. Right.
Can you hear me now?
Forgive me. I can hear you now.
Okay. So basically, you have eyewitness accounts or anecdotal evidence, and you've seen a lot of things, basically. So that's why. Do you no longer consider yourself an atheist, or where would you put yourself? Spiritual, agnostic on some things?
I would consider myself to be, I guess, the best way of explaining, because even an atheist, atheism is a modern religion, if you will. And I know a lot of atheists hate to hear that, but it's true. Ultimately, unless you've died and seen what happens, you're still relying on an idea, a principle, a value, a faith. But for myself, I have just grown to understand that so much like the wave of a deity's hand created life, as it is we created the deities. If you go back to the Big Bang, and one thing that is constant, it doesn't matter if you believe that a deity waved their hand or whatever and caused that. If you go with that concept, a big mass release of energy was done during the Big Bang. And this energy just went out through the universe. And as mankind got on the planet, humans, womankind, whatever floats people's boat, if they sit there and they start focusing their thoughts and believing in these deities, who's to say some of this energy, this positive or negative energy, haven't actually formed themselves? And I kind of look at it from that. I actually try to write my books in the ideas of being an atheist and focusing from that into basically just into that magic mystical world, if you will, but trying to keep sound and some sense to it. People usually, when it comes to people and their faith, that's an easy way of offending them. Is you just sit there and you just say, well, your faith is wrong, and man, they just claws. I mean, they turn into Wolverine all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's one reason I don't debate people, or I don't tell them what to believe or not to believe. I'm just very live and let live.
Right. I mean, ironically, you look at the history of this planet. What's one of our biggest problems? War. We in every war, you can always go back to a religion that's been the mainstay of a war. it's sad, but it's true. You know, we always spend. Jesus said, if you will, love thy neighbor, and we spent 2,000 years arguing with each other over how he said it.
Yeah.
So it's ludicrous to me at times. But yeah, sorry.
So, and I met you. We actually met online, like you said. We met through I guess mutual circles, or I was doing a lot of research back in the day. I met you, gosh, probably 3 years ago online, and I know we exchanged some emails on Facebook and maybe Gmail, and because I was at the time I was practicing goetic witchcraft. And so I was very intrigued with your books. Actually, I purchased one of your books on Kindle. So do you want to go ahead and give out the title of your books and where people can find them?
Amazon and Barnes & Noble, I know, are two of the online retailers. I know you can go to Barnes & Noble, and if they don't have it, I know you can get it through them. Demonology 101, Demonology 201. I'm currently working on 301, 401, and 501. However, though 501 is just going to be an omnibus. But I had limited release of a book on Masonic rituals. I am actually writing a book, researching it on witchcraft. I've submitted this book to different people, and no one wants to publish it because they flat out said, "Oh my God, it's the designing of a cult." And I'm like, "Oh yeah." I mean, they honestly, I guess the way I wrote it, I guess apparently I must have channeled like Jim Jones or David Koresh or someone when I started writing this, the one book, and they just have said, "No, we don't want to publish this because it literally is like a how-to guide." And I'm like, I didn't realize I was doing that, so I don't know.
Well, I remember when I discovered your work, and actually it was a couple of podcasts that I listened to interviews with you, and you basically said that these are manuals for people how to address certain issues of like poltergeist and paranormal issues that maybe a lot of people don't have an experience of or don't believe in or something like that. And even as an atheist now, the experiences that I've had and such, I just think that there will one day be a scientific, logical reason, but and neurological and all that. I have a very unique. I'm one of those people whose pineal gland just naturally produces more DMT, as Sam Harris says. So, I've always had a wonderful imagination, and I've written fairy tales and stuff as an English teacher. So I kind of like wed those two things together. I have like one foot in the logical and one in the emotional, but as far as belief, I don't have anything. And it's interesting that you came from like an atheist background and sort of developed a sense of, shall I say, belief in it or appreciation, or how, and go ahead and tell us a couple of actual things that you've seen, like literal things that you've seen with your own eyes.
With my own eyes,
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you what caused it, but I can tell you the end result. With my own eyes, I have seen a refrigerator that was in the downstairs basement of a house. I've seen I was up on the first floor and I saw this refrigerator literally launch itself. They had a cellar door, and it launched itself through that into the backyard of that house. And there was no one downstairs, no human being, at least. And that kind of gave me a little bit of appreciation. I have a small scar right here, and I had this captured on camera, and the reason why I have a small scar is because I was in a room talking with someone. They had been experiencing activity in the house, and then no one's standing around it, and the camera actually showed it nicely. This nice, big, thick, ironically, it's an amber-colored glass ashtray, just literally off an end table, and just shot straight at my face. So that it hurt a little bit, but I got through it, and I got over it, and went on to do better things. But I mean, there has been some malevolence that I've seen with my own eyes. I've never seen an actual apparition, at least in the terms of what we would expect to be an apparition.
Okay. Have you seen?
I've seen entities, but
you've
not
seen
an
entities.
actual apparition.
So you have seen entities.
Yes. And the only reason why I call them an entity is because I have no other explanation. I've always tried to approach this, like I said, I mean, from being an atheist, I actually became an atheist, and I can say this blatantly, became an atheist at the age of 6. Someone passed away, and I kind of sat there, and I was just a 6-year-old kid, but I sat there and I said, I'm going to refuse to believe in a God that would do something like this to a child. You ripped my mom away. And I sat there, and I just tried to stay focused with that concept that there obviously is no God, because no God would ever do anything as negative as this. This is wrong. And I always try to approach things from common sense. Whenever people sat there and said, "Oh, well, there's a noise over there. It's got to be haunted." Well, find out what the noise is. Go toward the noise. Find it. Take a look. Mm-hmm. And it was always stuff like that. Yeah, that's the reason why I never had problems going inside old dwellings, because when you hear a noise, 9 times out of 10, especially if it's dark, you can't see, but 9 times out of 10, you hear a noise on the other end of a room, and you're in a building that's been exposed to elements. Plaster will fall from the walls or drop from the ceiling. That's that little creak and crack that you hear from the other side. That's part of the reason why I actually say that the TV shows in this, what started out really as a hobby, but it was a drive for me. They kind of polluted the concept of being an investigator in all of this. And the reason why I say they polluted it is because they go out with infrared equipment, IR, full spectrum cameras, and they sit there and they go in the dark. And like I said, I started out with VHS camera, and if you, I mean, obviously I'm in a room now, I've got windows, but if it was at night and I didn't have any lights on, with a VHS camera, you couldn't record in this room. Mm-hmm. You couldn't record in it. I remember when one of the biggest technology leaps at the time was what was called cat's eye. And with cat's eye, the most you could do actually was, instead of having 4 lights on in a room, you could go down to 3, and it would still be somewhat visible where you could see. I sat there, I did enough work and studies on how to debunk orb photos. I mean, like I said, I try to approach everything from a skeptic point of view. I always tell people, don't ever trip over your open mind. It's okay that you have one, but don't trip over it. When you study the paranormal, it's not just ghosts. It's everything. It's everything from Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Yeti, UFOs, obviously. And in each one of these realms, albeit whatever sector of the paranormal, you will always find someone standing there lying to either get attention, or they're lying to make a buck. And what really got me was, after I started compiling enough notes, somebody sat there and somebody had told me, well, you should start publishing some of these notes, putting them together. And I said, great, now I'm going to be one of the people trying to make a buck. And it was a little bit up in arms. It's part of the reason why I really haven't done that many interviews in the past year. I've just been trying to pull away from all this media, actually. And truth be told, the only reason why I started considering doing this was because you asked, and I was like, well, you have a very ideological concept. Politically, I know we highly agree.
Yeah, we do. We always like each other's Facebook stuff, and yeah.
So it was, and that's another thing too with this whole business, this whole industry, if you will. I've grown so disheartened over it, And I see people who are starting out, and I'm always looking at them like, oh, you're making that mistake. Don't make that mistake. And I almost want to just pull some of these people off the side. Like, look, you don't understand how these people act.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people out there that even when you do try to produce something credible and try to show them, they're easy to be an armchair critic. And there's nothing wrong with being an armchair critic, because you should have more eyes on the situation. That's how better ideas are made. But the reality is that some people, if you're approaching this with a non-neutral ideology,
Mm-hmm.
if you're approaching this with a bias that either ghosts exist or ghosts don't exist, UFOs exist or UFOs don't exist, whatever is real, what is not real, then you're ultimately going to fail, because you need to find facts to support your values. You're never ever going to find a fact that could go on the contrary, because you will refuse to accept it. And I think that's the hardest part about this, is just trying to make sure that people understand. You've got to fight yourself to be as neutral as possible. It doesn't matter if you believe or not. Try to remain neutral. Always be willing to play, and this is no pun intended, devil's advocate to your own belief, because it's man, wow. Sorry, I guess I can go.
That's great. I think that, you made a lot of valid points, and I think a lot of atheists forget that atheist, the A prefix just means without or no God. I think a lot of atheists are more into the category of what I know, being an English teacher and into words, an anti-theist. So I think the distinction between atheist and anti-theist needs to be made with some people. So, and I definitely think that, there's a lot of unexplained things that you could say that I'm agnostic on. Maybe there's alien life, maybe there's not. I can't say for sure. I don't know. I'm not on the Starship Enterprise out there exploring. So, and there's just a lot of things that, we haven't answered. And science, science is closing those gaps in so many ways, and that's fantastic and awesome, and I like that. But I do see even a lot of people online who are not necessarily qualified, like my husband, like he's a physicist, to say whether or not something is real, but they know. It's almost like an angry knee-jerk thing. And so yeah, I always try to be a little bit, when people tell me things, emotionally detached a little bit, to the point where, okay, well, that's their experience. I'm not inside their head. I'm not their doctor. I wasn't there. I don't know what's going on. But that doesn't mean I go in wide-eyed and believe everything. It just means that I'm not going to argue with them and attack them. And I think a lot of people who get attacked. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I was going to say that legitimately, that has been the whole goofy aspect for things with me is, once I sat there and I started writing to publish, and I started putting this stuff out, somebody pointed out to me, they said, well, you want to make more book sales? And I said, well, I just want to get the information out there. And they're like, well, yeah, you got to start doing media and all this stuff. So I did. I started doing, I was doing Coast to Coast AM for a while and all that stuff. And I even did, they pulled me down to Atlanta, Georgia, stuck me in a hotel room for the History Channel. And they, over the course of like 6 hours, just interviewed me and filmed me. And I've seen myself inserted, no royalties, but I've seen myself inserted into like little documentaries on various stuff. And
wow,
the biggest thing about it though is that once you expose yourself to the media, to everyone, you get some interesting contacts. And when I say by interesting contacts, and I think it's even worse because I wrote books on demonology, because you've got to remember, the compared to regular like ghost hauntings, if you will, demonology, it attracts this religious concept.
It does. And I was always more curious. I've never been a religious person, like what you would think, church going and all that. I was more spiritual. And it does like the rabid religious people. So maybe you can speak to why it does. Is it just that what's been put upon it?
Well, I think it's all part of the concept of just how the religions were started. They are a security blanket.
Mm-hmm.
It's very big security blanket for some people. Like I said, I lost my mom when I was 6, and I sat there, and I was like, I was done with that. And then as I got older, and I was 27, my father had passed, and I caught myself breaking what I call the atheist rule. I sat there. It was the very first time I'd seen my father's body in a casket, and I turn around and I walk outside the funeral home, and I lit up a cigarette because I was just like, wow, this is actually happened. And I remember the cigarette, and I remember looking up, and I remember saying, well, I can't wait to meet up with you, old man, again. And I sat there, and I said it out loud, and then I went, wait a minute, what the? And I won't use foul language, but I was, what the F did I just say? Mm-hmm. And it was one of the experiences for me. And that's when I started grasping a lot more of the concept of how religions play out for people, was because I was like, it is the ultimate security blanket, because we as humans, we're so pent up with living our life here. And sure, times things get crappy, things get great, but we always believe that there's got to be something further. There's got to be something down the road, that this can't be it. And I think that's the hardest part. Maybe that's the one thing with a lot of people that are devout into the religions. They just can't grasp that concept that, yeah, once you're done, you could be done, And don't get me wrong. I mean, I've seen some very interesting things to where it does make you question as to whether or not there is actually something further. But it also leads, when you get into the world of hauntings, leads into other questions. Is there an actual continuation of a soul, if you will? Or is there more of what's called memory hauntings or playback hauntings? The idea behind hauntings is really, I mathematically, I try to break it down that out of all you take every haunting case that's actually reported every year, and about 90% of it can easily be debunked. All right. If people are relying on faith and just their own short-sightedness, then yeah, it probably seems real to them. But 90%, no matter what, is pretty much like if you just get another set of eyes on it and have it looked at and investigated, you can debunk it. The other 10%, it's really interesting because about 6 to 7%, depending on the year, that the evidence in question can go either way. They can either support the ideas of hauntings, or they can be debunked. It's up in arms. And then out of that remainder 4 to 5%, depending on the year, you've got something that the only answer we have is that of the supernatural. But whether or not even then, you can still open up the question as to whether or not we're not able to use either the proper tools or find the right way of giving a definitive answer as to what that actually is. Sorry, I went off on that tirade. The biggest thing with people in their religions, it will set them as to what they're going to focus on, what they're going to believe. And ironically, a lot of the cases, because you get these people that contact you once you put your name out there. You get these people that contact you. You would be amazed at how many times, and I honestly believe it is the old wives' tale that has erupted and grown into just one of the downfalls of religion, is you always have a lot of people. Usually, it's ironically, it's probably majority more women than it is men, and they leave the Christian faith. Pick a version, Catholic, Protestant, Christian, whatever version of Christianity. They leave that. They explore other ideas, and one of the things that they usually explore is witchcraft. And then all of a sudden, they get back into Christianity, that's when dark things happen. And I honestly believe it's more psychological than it is actually true, because what it is people feel like they betrayed their faith and now they're back to it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I've actually seen that where they think a demon's chasing them or something. And which brings us to like the etymology of the word demon, that it really doesn't mean devil or anything like that. I think, a lot's been put on that word itself. And it really is just, what is it? It's sort of I don't want to go into the whole etymology, but sort of a synonym for like your soul or your higher spirit or something like that. So, and as you know, you've researched the Goetias and the grimoires and all that. It's sort of like a lot of the demonic or goetic, I'll say goetic spirits represent different parts of our psyche. If you read it kind of like as a part of Jungian psychology. So yeah, what you're saying is so relevant that a lot of this is psychological. And I think that that's a neat way for you to look at it when you do have to debunk things, and a neat way to go about it. A very appropriate way, I'll say. So.
Right. The mind over matter, I think, is one of the best ways of just maybe summing that idea up. I feel bad because a person that I know, they suffer from MS, and years and years ago, he believed in something. He was more agnostic, but he believed in something. And he seriously wanted me. He was like, I challenge you to make me an atheist. And I said really? And he was like, yeah. So I started challenging him. And lo and behold, he's become an atheist. In fact, he's actually become a spokesperson for atheism.
Wow.
And also from MS. And I actually feel sad. I feel sorry because I've even told him, I'm like, I have enough knowledge to know that the ideas of mind over matter, that there's a reason why some people go to holistic doctors and they use holistic medicine, and for some reason it works. And you're sitting there saying, well, I don't believe. And I'm just like, I wish that I could now reverse what I did in the past and make him a believer, and hopefully maybe some of this holistic medicine would actually work for him. But that's, I guess I dug my grave on that one, no pun intended. But yeah.
Well, it almost is like I wouldn't say that's your fault. I'd say that he wanted that. He wanted to go that route, and just sort of you're, I guess the catalyst, but it's certainly not your fault. Everyone makes their own choices. But back on the topic of demons, what exactly do you think demons are? Because I know you said entities, not necessarily apparitions, and I think we both consider them two different things. And like I've had my experiences as well. I just want to say for the record, I don't have any negative experiences or any poltergeists or anything that would, nothing like a horror story or a movie or anything silly like that. Everything I've ever experienced has been very positive and very safe and very, very, very uplifting. But yeah, I realize that, these things that I call goetic spirits, and Christians use the word demon, misuse the word demon because they don't understand the etymology. What do you think that these entities are? Are they just facets of our psyche? Are they something in another plane?
Like I said, if you go with the concept that through out the universe, that there are pools of negative and pools of positive energy sources. Mm-hmm. And you sit there and you say, as a human being, and you pray. Ironically, this right here, this actually traces back to an early Druidic wish spell, I believe is what it actually. But Christians, they do this and they pray, and even Jews do it. Mm-hmm. Even do that. But the reality is that they I believe that they're focusing. They're giving form to this energy, for whatever reason, and they're sitting there And I honestly believe that what happens is this fact that it finally does take form. And once it does take form, that's it develops those characteristics, those mannerisms that we as human beings have channeled on. You know, I mean, when you sit there and you praise concept in the idea, who's to say that, you know, all the gods, you know, didn't exist at one time, because we as humans sat there and focused on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's ironically, though, it's only in Christianity where the other gods now become a tool of Satan. You know, at least in the paranoid, well, I mean, all Christianity is paranoid, but at least in the highly evangelical.
Yeah, that's, you know, when I went to parochial school, so my family, they're Catholic, most of them. And the idea of demons, I mean, I know the Catholic Church still has that, and you do still have radical Catholics, but compared to my friends that I had in college who came from like a Protestant or evangelical background, it wasn't near as focused on demons. I mean, everything, if they're coming from a literal background, everything is a demon, you know, and that's rather interesting.
You know, well, you also have to remember, that religion alone, it's been so polluted over the years because of every time it starts off and then it scatters, and every scattering puts it in different cells, if you will. And it's actually kind of sad, because really, when you look at at Satan, okay, Satan comes from the word Satanas, which actually comes from the word shaitan or shaitanus, and that actually doesn't mean Satan. Means the term second with sin. And really, if you weigh everything out, if you just, you know, pull back from history and just look at it, second with sin actually meant that Satan was actually he's second in charge of evil. And some people have actually speculated that even though it was a term for a place, that Hades was actually the first within. And there have been other entities as well that have been out of Sumerian religions. There were dark overlords. So it's now, like I said, though, when we progress forward in history and we look at evangelical, for some reason, they may not even go with demonic or goetic. They will sit there and they will actually automatically assign anything wrong, anything negative, anything evil with Satan. You know, maybe he said it best in this little church lady skit on Saturday Night Live. You know, oh, who did this bad thing? Could it be Satan? You know, that pretty much explains how they operate with this mentality. We really have sat there, and it's actually sad, because like I said, I'm not trying to offend anyone, but man alive, that is when it comes to people and their faith, they take it so strict, and you could be loosely based in your religion. I mean, I took on the role of truck driver, and I met some other truck drivers who sat there, and I saw them cuss, I saw them drink, I saw them do things with gals that hang around truck stops, and sitting there the entire time going, but you walk over there to the truckers' chapels, and you spend time every Sunday, and it's like, you know, they're still cemented. I mean, it's understandable. We as human beings, we have traditions and all this, but it's sad, because when we go with demonology, when we go with that concept, some of the contacts from people I've gotten, you can tell they're just so far gone, and unfortunately the mental health laws in this country have changed. You're just like, I seriously need to put you in contact with a psychiatrist. You don't need my help, you need a psychiatrist. But it's I think, once again, it's just our focus as to what we've done as a society. We get people so paranoid.
Very
with
true.
evil that it just, yeah, it's bad. It's horrible. You know, I mean, sorry.
And I no, that's correct. We tend to demonize a lot of things in our culture, and that's a whole knee-jerk reaction, I think, to the unknown or to something that is not from our point of view. And I know that you've told a couple of stories on other podcasts I've listened to, and in your book. So I guess I'm correct in saying that what we call goetic spirits, or what we know as goetic spirits, you're basically saying they're not necessarily evil. They can be good or bad, or amoral, or whatever.
That's just it. There have been entities that, even though they're demonic by nature, to use that term, they still produce some positive aspects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm having massive brain farts right now.
Well, I'll
well,
mention
no,
one.
they're okay.
Gap. Remember, or I hope I'm saying that right. It has a diphthong, like GAAP. Gap.
Yes.
He was always one of my favorites, and I know you've had positive encounter. I won't say encounters, but you've had positive. You've seen positive results, maybe from him.
Well, I've seen positive results in general. The biggest thing is that the best way of explaining it is that what's positive to you and I, what's positive to someone else, may not be positive to another person.
Very correct. Very true.
And like I said, there are characteristics with some of these entities that just sound horrific, but at the same time, it's like, wow, that's actually a good thing that they do that. If that's legitimate, that they are there, they're existing, and they're doing that. There's an entity that doesn't prey on children, doesn't prey on women, doesn't prey on men, but will prey on all sexual predators, because that's how it charges itself. It feeds off of those predators that do those nasty, horrific things, and then it either charges itself, or it enjoys the abuse and torment that it does to sexual predators. Gap, yeah. Let's just, the reality is that Gap, if it really is an entity that I have seen in my past, and the end result, that is one of those ones that you can hold up there and you can say, you are either positive in your own way, or you are completely negative all the way around. You just don't realize it yet. It's actually, it's very, very, like I said, it is the difference between looking at someone and saying your religion is wrong and my religion is right, or my religion is wrong and yours is right. It really truly is in the eye of the beholder, and especially when looking at the reference points of what these entities, what they're capable of doing. It's actually, wow. I really am actually at a loss of words on that one. It really is just one of those things that can get you really excited, or it can get you really sad. I honestly encourage anyone that if you're going to get involved in doing this, be prepared to go ahead and just smile and nod. And I say that facetiously, because you're going to walk into this world and you're going to look at it now through different eyes. There's just a lot of people that do a lot of things, some positive, some negative, and you're going to see all that. And then you're going to see the end results of what the paranormal can do to them. Sorry.
And you're actually talking about, for I know a lot of our listeners are atheist, and maybe they've never had any, and many of them have never even had anything to do with ceremonial magic or witchcraft or the Goetias, the Goetic spirits, pagan deities. You're basically talking about people who dabble in ceremonial high magic. Is that correct? Like when you're talking about the results, like what happens to them?
Well, I'm talking about like it's a growth experience, because you're going to have to open yourself up. You're going to grow as a human being. I mean, that's a positive. But then again, I've seen some people get involved in this, and the people they've grown into, I honestly, I wouldn't even want them to live in my neighborhood, let alone come over to my house.
So you have seen people who, because for me, to me, it was always sort of a very positive thing, very self-empowering, and just kind of my own way, without being a scientist, of exploring the unknown. And I approached it very skeptically for someone who, because I wasn't coming from a religion, I wasn't a member of a group. And I think that's why, because it was more like, okay, well, we're going to see if this is what this is. And it was kind of my own self-exploration. But I can see how what you're saying, if people are actually involved in group like cults and negativity, and I personally have not seen or even heard of that like firsthand. Like I haven't heard of anyone doing that firsthand, but you have seen that.
Well, I've seen some cult activity. When I first started doing a lot of this, like I as a side effect, once I was involved in what I've always jokingly called my tip over case, which basically made it to where it was the first time that I was confronted with something that was so beyond my comprehension. I said, and I went to the church and I said, I need help. We need these people. They need help. I need help to help them. Please help me. And they got involved, and I started learning more and more. I picked up a copy of the Roman Rituals. I ended up actually finally pulling up the entire case of the Roman Rituals. That's actually another book I did publish, which was a complete volume of it. And I have all the sacramentals in it, including the sacramental praise for beer actually in it. But once that situation happened, I began learning more about history and more about ideas and values, and I forgive me, I completely lost.
It's just really interesting because I think that kind of goes back to, you've seen like people who take it to the negative, we'll say, and I think it goes back to the whole psychological element, like where these people are bent on taking it and what maybe their natural alignment is. Are they a positive or negative person? And I've personally, for me, I've seen more negativity with actual religion, not so much someone privately practicing a spirituality or just going solo. But I think that just speaks to my life experience and things that I've seen. And the whole Goetic spirit thing, it will always, I think, interest me because, like I said, I didn't go into it with any sense of I've met a lot of Wiccans and witches who seem to have a sense of ego or something about it, or they have something to prove, or they treat it like a religion, and that's really silly. And I know there's a lot of women that are drawn to it because they've had negative experiences with religion or people or just society at large. So it's kind of like it is a feminist thing for them too. So I think that those are two different things as well, other reasons.
All religions really truly are empowering. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you want to go with one version of religion where you put power in this entity's hand, this deity, to guide you in your life, or you want to go into another religion where you are the driving force. Ultimately, it's always a little bit of a power aspect. Even for the average good person, they get involved in any religion because it's a sense of empowerment. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great security blanket. But in the end, always stop and ask yourself, what do you truly want to get out of this? What do you want to have happen? Because ultimately, when you're sitting there and you break it down and you ask those questions, you need to actually analyze the answers, because if the answers are anything negative in regards of, well, I got involved in this religion because I want to rule the world, that's a negative answer. If you get involved with any religion, you say, well, I just want to help people in general. That's a good thing. I just want to help people understand more. That's a good thing. I want to feed the homeless. That's a good thing. I want to eradicate the homeless. Depending on how you plan on doing that, that could either be positive or negative. You know, all religions are a sense of empowering. Even being an atheist, it's an empowerment.
Yeah.
Because like I said, the easy way to tell whether or not you're a negative atheist is when you sit there and you get confronted with the fact that you are now following a religion. If you sit there and you say, this isn't a religion, this is built in fact, how dare you call this a religion? Obviously, you're you're being an atheist because you're just anti-religion. You're not anti-spirituality, because that's the goofy thing. Being an atheist, sitting there saying, hey, when I die, I become worm food. That's a spirituality. You know, there's nothing negative about it, really, but there's nothing positive. You're maintaining strength. But when you, sorry. When you sit there, sorry.
I think that's.
We're having a dog.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because on the subject of death, I think atheists can be, as they almost can seem very religious about it. Like religious people think they know, but you know, and it's where you physically, we rot, but what happens to us as far as consciously? I don't know. I'm not dead. And other atheists can't stand it when I say that. I'm like, I don't know. I'm just an atheist. I'm without a God, an atheist. I don't, have on my Twitter up there anti-theist, even though I'm not a fan of religion. I don't like religion, but I'm not going to argue about it like they will.
And ultimately, really, when you take a look at the word religion, all it actually means is a group of people who have the same spiritual belief. That's actually all that means. And that's the reason why now, yes, you have an atheist church that has opened up. Atheists facilitate literature. They do campaigns for charities. And there's even an atheist baptism. I actually got to witness this, and I thought it was one of the coolest things ever. They sat there. They had people come up to the altar in the atheist church, and they sat there with a hairdryer and did the baptism of atheism by hairdryer.
Wow.
I found it rather cute. But
was it supposed to be a parody, or was it?
It is actually designed as a parody, but that's actually truly, they do baptisms. And if you would like to be baptized as an atheist, they will pull out the holy hairdryer and give you the blast of dryness. Now, you really do get a chance to actually meet a lot of people. When you get involved in this, you do get a chance to meet people from different religious backgrounds. I still say one of the coolest things I was able to do was, now I call them Leviist, but that isn't actually what they go by. But they're Satanist, but they're the atheist version of Satanism.
Oh, I know one.
Much like Christianity, where it's splintered off. Satanism has actually splintered it off. You've got three main groups. You've got Leviist, you've got fundamentalists, and then you've got what I just call the dumb devil worshiping kids. These are the guys. If you're older like me, they were the kids in the neighborhood back in the 1980s that wore the Motley Crue shirt, and they would go, "Yeah, I worship Satan because he's so cool." So,
yeah.
but no, I got to hang out with a group of them, and very nice people, very nice people. That's the one thing I know I've offended some of my Christian friends, because I'm like, no, man, they got better morality than you do, and they're but also what really upset them, my Christian friends, when I pointed this out, majority of Satanists vote Republican, and they don't like that. But I'm just like, well, it's true. Why would they vote Republican? Well, they're not pro-abortion, contrary to belief, and they honestly want to see that all social programming goes away, because all it does is it makes the poor go to church a lot more, thereby making the church go broke. So there is a way, there is a balance there, and yeah. So, but it is actually kind of funny, really, when you look at some of the religious values. You've got so many Christians going Republican, and yet they're all sitting there they're not stopping and realizing, oh, well, the Republican Party doesn't actually do. Sorry, I guess I ran on.
No, that's great. That's a good point to make.
The Republican Party doesn't actually facilitate anything Christian, really, when you think about it. Well, what are you, Kurt? You're anti-capitalist? Well, that's when you sit there. It's usually one of the best times to use their own words against them and point out, well, isn't it Jesus who said that, it is easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the kingdom?
Yeah.
And man, I actually lost a friend. A guy I had known since I was 12 years old, and up until last year, that was the camel that broke no pun intended, the camel that broke the straw's back. So, or the straw that broke the camel's back. Yeah, see?
No,
hours of sleep does not work.
Oh. Wow. We've covered a lot, and we're going to have to do this again. And it's so interesting. One last question I have for you, and I have to ask this. I had a Google Hangout with some of my atheist friends and another one of my Bells the other night. And I told a little bit of the background of the story of the Bell Witch of Tennessee. Now, have you heard of the story of the Bell Witch of Tennessee?
I've actually been to the Bell. Well, I've been to the cave.
You have.
It's up in Adams.
Yeah.
Oh, you're in Alabama.
No.
That's like a 1-tank drive for you.
I know. Well, I'm from Tennessee. I grew up in Tennessee, partially grew up in Tennessee. So
okay.
The Bell Witch was a very big fixture in my childhood, and I'm a very, very big fan of the Bell Witch.
The Adams case, the Bell Witch case. Sorry, not the Adams, but it's very interesting. And don't get me wrong, there have been many theories behind it. Now, when I'd gone, yes, I brought some equipment. No, I didn't get anything. But I'm sitting there the entire time, and I'm story unfolded, and there were actual newspaper accounts that even made its way to New York City, and you could read an edition of New York Times, or actually it's not New York Times, it's another newspaper at the time, and there is an account of the Bell Witch situation, and the reality is that a lot of people know they don't like to revise. Some people like revision of history, some people don't. It is very interesting because, yes, it could be a case in which the old man was just an asshole, a-hole, and was molesting his young daughter.
See? Well, we only have a few minutes because I know you have to go, but I want to tell you this before we get off, because I know this is what I first started writing you about, like when we first connected a few years ago. The whole goetic spirit thing and all that jazz. From my personal story, from my personal experience with the whole growing up in Tennessee and every Halloween doing the Bell Witch in front of the mirror, and knowing that story and having fond memories of that whole legend, I sympathize with that, the Bell Witch, and it was never human, it was never female. There is something. If there is something there, it's something pretty significant, to that. What you were talking about, things that we can't explain yet.
Well, and also, I mean, another thing is, as a woman, never never sit there and don't ever, don't let a guy tell you what to do. And yet I'm telling you, no, as a woman, never be afraid to stand there and say that I am empowered, because especially when it comes to magical content, because women have had a bigger play in the paranormal and events that have taken place over the years, well, over the centuries, millenniums. And it's all by women, you know. There have been a heightened amount of haunting cases in which a girl is becoming a woman in the house, or even in which a woman has basically gotten to the end and it's time for hysterectomy and all that. There have been a heightened amount of reported cases in homes where that's going on. Heck, some of the early witchcraft documentation that I had looked at, that was all under high magic, if you will. It actually, in certain charms and in certain spells, menstrual blood actually a mainstay. So women truly. Oh, there's actually a love spell. One of the most goofiest things I found out. There was a love spell that one of the ingredients is the woman's menstrual blood, and she would put it in like candies. Basically make these candies and then give it to the person in question that she was desiring, and it would act as a love spell for them. And I was like, what? And you know, my wife's just sitting there the entire time just like going ha, ha, ha. And I'm like, okay, she didn't do that.
Wow.
So,
well, we should totally do a show on just like the Bell Witch and talk about some of your. I've never actually been to the cave. I've never actually been there, even though I'm connected. So
you should go there. That it's an awesome. Now the one house is actually burned down, but you can go to. But yeah, the cave's open for tours. I think it's open between May and September. Don't quote me, but it's not open year round. So.
yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely worth it.
I guess I never liked the commercial stuff. So I'll have to do that, and we'll have to do this again and talk more about all this interesting things that you've seen and done. So, and I really want to thank you for being on, because we just started this, and it's an honor to have you on. And you know, I've known about you and I've respected you for a while, and Kurt Kesler, everybody, and you are one of the most, well, you are the most legitimate person I know that is involved in the paranormal right now. And I say that as an atheist and as a physicist's wife, and so I have a lot of respect for you, and I just want you to know that, and I thank you. I'm very grateful.
Well, thank you. And we didn't discuss Star Trek.
I know. Next time we'll have to do the whole Bell Witch thing in Star Trek. So.
Yeah, well.
But I'm going to stop recording, and you'll still see me though. But I just want to say to our audience, thank you so much for being with us, and bye.